आजू बाजू में देखिए, we are in Jaipur. How many people want to have a startup? इसलिए आपको, if you are there and if you want to be a startup, this is the session for you. But before I start, आजकल वो OTT platforms में होता है ना, disclaimers. हाथ ऊपर कर दिया. How many of you seen Rocket Boys? Part 2? नहीं देखा अभी तक, मैंने भी नहीं देखा. Part 1 देख लिया? If you have not seen Rocket Boys Part 1, then you don't understand India. I would suggest, I will give you a lot of recommendation to actually study Indian history in a modern format. Rocket Boys is one of the most brilliant OTT made on 2, or I would say now 3 scientific leaders, because in Part 2, the third one is getting more importance. His name is APJ Abdul Kalam. But many of us don't know the contribution of 2 great scientists of this country, Dr. Homi Bhabha and Vikram Sarabhai. So it's a very interesting OTT series. The first season was, I think, 8 episodes. I have not seen the second, so I can't comment, but believe me, it tells you the story of leaders. Remember I was telling you leaders? Right, from political leader to administrative leaders to scientific leaders. And how India became a nuclear power country. It's very important to all of you to actually study Indian history in a new format. So what is my disclaimer? हम तो चाणक्य में बात करने वाले. So my disclaimer is very clear. All of us, after we go out from here, don't worry, even if we started late, I will end up on time. अरे 12:30 बजे बोलते रहो. मेरे को टाइम दिया गया था 12:30 से 2 बजे तक, 2 बजे बंद कर दूंगा. Because I believe that it is not about the length, but the impact that you had even with one sentence. True or no? लाइफ में याद रखना ये बात कि आप कितना बोलते हो उससे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता. If you want to listen to me, there are a lot of videos. And last I counted, there were more than 3,000 hours of my video available. सुनना है तो बहुत कुछ है और आपके टाइप पे सुनो. But impact के लिए मैं यहाँ पे 1 घंटा बोलूँगा. The first disclaimer is very important and only disclaimer. After this lecture, don't glorify India's past. ये क्या बोल दिया आपने? You know, that's a problem with our great culture. We always go back in reverse. हमारे पास था. अरे हमारे पास था उससे क्या होगा? So yes, we should know our history, we should know our culture, we should get inspired by the past. But don't get stuck in past. आगे बढ़ना है कि नहीं बढ़ना है? So inspired by the past, we should be future ready. That is the overall essence of my talk. Be inspired by the past, but be future ready. That's all. बाकी का चाणक्य नीति पढ़ते रहो जिंदगी भर, आपको कुछ ना कुछ नया समझ में आ जाएगा. So let me ask you a question. Okay, how many of you have seen your grandparents? Most of us. Great grandparents? Grandfather, some of you have. Great grandparents? अभी थोड़ा हाथ कम हो जाएंगे. Great grandparents? कोई नहीं, ठीक है. So if I have to ask you one question, कि आपके great grandparents थे? कैसे पता? कोई फोटोग्राफ है? किसी का होगा. उनके पीछे की पीढ़ी का फोटोग्राफ वीडियो है? So when you go back to history, there comes a particular point that you don't have records, isn't it true? But can you deny the fact that आपको great multiplied by 10 उस पीढ़ी में grandparents नहीं थे? So remember one thing, कि चाणक्य, whether you accept it or no, was there, and the beauty is that he is a part of your genes, your DNA. I'll tell you one formula for those people who are first generation businessmen. Anybody first generation businessman here? And in Jaipur though you have the complete business Marwadi culture, right? I'll tell you something. You never do business with a product or service. That's a byproduct. Okay, हो जाएगा. But every businessman keeps looking at new product and services. आजकल वो क्या buzzword है ना, innovation. You always do business with your DNA. Surprising? आपके अंदर वो छुपा हुआ है, उसको जगाना पड़ता है. So if you are a startup, let me tell you, you are lucky because already there in you. And I always tell the greatest entrepreneur is not a person who only works in the technology field. We are all celebrating the IT day, right? The greatest entrepreneur is the one who works with 2 things, nature एंड ह्यूमन बिहेवियर। सबसे बड़ा स्टार्टअप सक्सेसफुल वो होता है जिसको ये दो बातें समझ में आती है, नेचर्स लॉ, बराबर, एंड द सेकंड ह्यूमन बिहेवियर. So when I was talking about your grandparents and great grandparents, all of us, including me, if you go back to every family, we were all farmers, true or no? हमारे सारे जड़े गांव से आती है, करेक्ट और नो? हाँ या नहीं? और मैं आपको एक बात बताऊं कि the greatest entrepreneur actually is a farmer. ये दो चीज के साथ काम करता है. आप कोई भी गांव में जाओ, आज भी भारत में 6.5 लाख गांव है, and unfortunately we want to make them cities. मेरे किताब में मैंने लिखा है, it's called Chanakya in You. I would suggest that you should read that book because that is about a startup culture. And in that there is a small, section where I have written what is the difference between a village and a city. In a village, the first person knows the last person, correct? And in a city, the first person may not even know the next person. कितने लोग मेट्रो सिटीज में हम कहानी सुनते हैं कि मर जाते हैं, ट्रू और नो? एक हफ्ते के बाद पता चलता है कि वो दादा या दादी मर गए, ट्रू और नो? क्यों? क्योंकि स्मेल आने लग गया डेड बॉडी का. What culture is this? But the real culture of this country is agriculture, without which we are a vulture. मैं क्यों बात करता हूं कि चाणक्य स्पोकन ऑल अबाउट दिस. 1 घंटा बहुत कम है, but just to tell you, Chanakya spoke about how a person can become an entrepreneur. And again, I'll come back as we speak about it in the next part. But before that, why do I call the farmer the greatest entrepreneur? आप सोचिए कि वो कितना मेहनत करता है, and वो कभी अकेले मेहनत नहीं करता, उसके साथ उसका परिवार मेहनत करता है. Isn't it true? The wife, the children, the neighbors, वो साथ में हल चलाते, isn't it? They have actually plowed the land and then he think about the risk he takes. पूरा अपना जिंदगी लगा देता है, correct? एक जमीन का टुकड़ा है and then he में वो बीज डाल देता है and बारिश के लिए रुका रहता है. It is like a modern businessman. He invested everything into that business. True or no? और successful होगा कि नहीं होगा कोई guarantee नहीं है. But he keeps praying. And one day suddenly the rain may come or may not come. Isn't he not taking a risk? But nature blesses him, isn't it true? And for thousands of years, this country has been praying to God कि हमने अपना काम कर दिया, अब आप हम पे कृपा कीजिए. True or no? इसलिए याद रखिए, there are many types of yoga in this country. The most famous one right now is yogasanas. International Yoga Day आ गया ना? But I'll tell you 2 more yogas you should go away with these 2 words, and they're directly connected with entrepreneurship. And it is not Patanjali Yoga Sutras, huh? And that is also yoga, no doubt about it. Yogasana is of course important at the physical level, but it goes up till samadhi. But 2 important words of yoga for entrepreneurship. One is called karma yoga, and the second is called udyog. So what is karma yoga? Do your best and leave the rest. Let me tell you, as entrepreneurs, all startup people will understand one very important thing. आप कितना भी मेहनत करो, एक चीज है जो आपके हाथ में नहीं है. True or no? Even Bill Gates cannot guarantee. True? ChatGPT का किसको पता था? सुंदर पिचाई may not be sleeping now. True or no? So remember, कर्म करना है भैया, करते ही रहना है. But second interesting word, we don't believe in industry. एक जो word हम लोग westernize हो गए ना, our word for industry in our Indian culture is called udyog. Isn't it true? That also is called yoga. उद्ध का मतलब है उठना. जो समाज को उठाता है वो उद्योगपति होता है. So go to any community, business community, till now, Marwadis, Gujaratis, Sindhis, and South में भी बहुत सारे हैं. In fact, there's a saying in the Marwadi community, since I'm speaking from Jaipur, जहाँ ना पहुँचे बैलगाड़ी, वहाँ पे पहुँचा. That is entrepreneurship culture. They take a risk. I have seen a Marwadi का छोटा सा दुकान in a village in Kutch, in the border of Pakistan. मैं पूछा कहाँ से आए हो? तो कहाँ से आए हो मतलब क्या? गाली मत दो. यहाँ पे 700 साल से होता है कि नहीं होता है? 700 साल से. बोला हाँ, हमारे कितने पीढ़ी आगे. So we are not outsiders. We are here for 700 years. So look at your DNA. Believe me, my dear friends, Education doesn't guarantee entrepreneurship, but DNA guarantees along with education. So today I want you to go back and saying that आज आप कुछ भी करो, रात को सोने से पहले 5 मिनट जिसको आपने कभी देखा नहीं है, बराबर है, ग्रेट 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 ग्रैंडफादर के पीछे उनको थैंक यू बोलना. वी आर बिकॉज दे वेयर, वी आर बिकॉज, तो उसको इतना थैंक यू बोलना, फिर चाणक्य नीति समझ में आ जाएगा. So with that I like to start with my particular topic. Friends, you know Chanakya was very clear that in our society, बहुत ध्यान से रखना, we are never individuals, we always think collectively. कितने लोगों की शादी हो चुके हैं यहाँ पे? Don't worry, the students will also get married. मुझे शादी नहीं करना है, शादी करके डाइवोर्स करना है, वो भी चलेगा. But समाज व्यवस्था ऐसा है कि we still give importance to the relation of marriage. Isn't it true? ये आपने नहीं बनाया, ये हजारों सालों की परंपरा है. And we have a very interesting model. आप नहीं चाहोगे तो भी आ जाएगा, family pressure. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about marriage. The idea is that, you know, in the Western culture, there are only two segregations: individual and the government. True or no? मेरा कुछ नहीं ठीक और तो गवर्नमेंट को ब्लेम करो. Government is required, but in our samaj, government comes as the fifth pillar of a society, not the second pillar. Individual, government is the European Western model. What is our model? I'll tell you. हमारे यहाँ पे व्यक्ति से पहले आता है परिवार. Isn't it true? The first unit of our society is family. We think like a family. True or no? आपको सबसे बड़ा टेंशन क्या होगा पता है क्या? मम्मी फोन कर दिया, शाम को 7 बजे घर नहीं पहुंचे. ट्रू और नो? सो आपने एंड शादी भी करने तो माँ पिताजी क्या बोलेंगे? ट्रू और नो? जॉब करेंगे, स्टार्टअप करेंगे तो माँ पिताजी क्या बोलेंगे? ट्रू. तो पहले व्यक्ति से भी बड़ा होता है समाज, परिवार. और बहुत सारी परिवार मिलके, लॉट ऑफ फैमिली यूनिट्स कम टुगेदर एंड बिकम ए समाज और ए सोसाइटी. और बहुत सारे समाज मिलके एक राष्ट्र बनता है. So nation is the fourth pillar and राष्ट्र चलाने के लिए शासन लगता है. देखो कितना ब्यूटीफुल मॉडल है. तो हमें लगता है कि आई एम एन इंडिविजुअल. यू कैन नॉट बी एन इंडिविजुअल इन दिस कंट्री, यू विल बी पुल्ड बैक. आई टेल यू दिस, पीपल रियलाइज इट व्हेन दे गो अब्रॉड. व्हेन दे गो अब्रॉड, आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू हैव कजिन्स रिलेटिव्स अब्रॉड इन वेरियस कंट्रीज एंड सो कॉल्ड डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज. देखो ये डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज का डेफिनेशन शायद चेंज होना चाहिए. अभी we only talk about one development model called economic development, but you'll be surprised, most of the developed countries have got two major professions: lawyers and psychiatrists. हमारे इधर भी चालू हो गया है. And we have a definition. आप सोचो कि everybody is sliding up in a court case or having a problem with mental health and you call it developed society. हमारे यहाँ पे psychologist is the दादी माँ. Isn't it true? दादी माँ का नुस्खा works, isn't it? So you don't have to go to clinical psychology. I would suggest all of you spend half an hour with your eldest member in your family. दादाजी दादी माँ, वो आपको ऐसा नुस्खा देंगे, all your mental health problem will disappear. Anyway, why am I telling you is that Chanakya understood एक समाज व्यवस्था before he understood अर्थ व्यवस्था. I'm telling in Hindi, the reason is that, you know, that language is so beautiful. Every language in our country is only beautiful, and certain things you cannot translate into English. I'm using English, don't worry. A lot of my works are in English, but the beauty of your mother tongue is very important. So please, apart from professionally developing globally with an English language, don't forget the mother tongue that you have, right? And if at all you get a chance, and you should make it a prana or a sankalpa in your life to study Sanskrit. I'm an MA in Sanskrit. And believe me, after that, my life changed. You can understand every Indian language and every global language. So Sanskrit कोई भाषा नहीं है. It's like saying, you know, gravity was discovered by Newton. Gravity was not discovered, but it already existed, right? He found it. Correct? So Sanskrit is not a language that we think about कि कोई किसी ने बैठ के उसको rule बनाया. नहीं, of course there are rules. जो हम लोग स्कूल में पढ़ते हैं. But it's a language, if you understand, you can understand human psychology. Anyway, again, today is not my language lecture. Today is my startup lecture. So let me start by telling that first thing that you should remember is that every startup person is an entrepreneur. पता है आपको? Sure? रिस्क लेता है, लेती है, whatever. The second word is that every entrepreneur is a leader. True or no? Every startup is an entrepreneur. उसको enterprising spirit होना चाहिए. What is entrepreneurship? The spirit की नहीं, कुछ भी हो जाए हम खड़े हैं. परिस्थिति कुछ भी हो, मनस्थिति is more important, isn't it? So कोविड आ गया, पैंडेमिक आ गया, आएगा, उसके ऊपर भी आएगा, उसके बाद भी आएगा. और हमारे पीढ़ियों के पहले there was World War I and World War II. Isn't it true? And we think all these are real world wars. हमारे संस्कृति में we saw Mahabharat war, isn't it? You know how many people died in Mahabharat? 90 crore. And think about only family members. घूम फिर के सब लोग एक ही है. 90 crore. So we have seen bigger disaster. This country is amazing because we have seen what is entrepreneurship. के every चीज के बाद खड़े हो जाओ, isn't it? After World War I and II, people thought the world will disappear. कुछ नहीं. You know, we have a population of 7 billion. The problems after World War I is how to feed these people. And most of the countries, including India, globally had one problem: population explosion. हमारा ह्यूमन रेस खत्म हो जाएगा, कुछ खत्म नहीं होगा. ह्यूमन रेस इतना बढ़ रहा है कि we had different problems. Anyway, so remember one thing: if you want to be a startup person, you should understand entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship is equal to leadership. अगर आप लीडर के जैसा नहीं सोचोगे, तो you'll never understand how to be an entrepreneur. We'll talk about those technical words later on, but I'll start with a small video. And I would suggest all of you watch this full video later on. It's from a serial called Chanakya by Dr. Chandraprakash Dwivedi. It was broadcasted in Doordarshan 25 years ago after Ramayana and Mahabharata. It was re-telecasted during pandemic. घर पे बैठ के देखे. नहीं देखे तो कोई बात नहीं. 47 episodes still available on YouTube free of cost. Indians love this word free. मैं हमेशा मैं बोलता हूँ. Of course, we are moving to the next word called affordable. Correct? 99 rupees में देखोगे? अभी हाँ बोलते. पहले वो भी नहीं बोलते थे. Anyway, so what I'm saying is this is a small clipping from a serial where Chanakya is not a leader, he is a leadership guru. So that's what we'll connect to. What does a guru guide a leader who is an entrepreneur and people like us who are into startups? Let's look at his advice. Can we play the video, please? It's an interesting video where there's a lot of debate and discussions. And the young generation loves debate and discussions, right? All classrooms are supposed to be debate and discussions. It's a bigger video where he says, Mera Jnaan, Mera Dhan hai. And if you look at it, you know, there are three kind of people in this video. The first one is the leader who is Dhananand from Patliputra, modern day Patna. The second category is the, apart from the king, is the students. You saw that? And the third category is the teacher. और यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? राजा को लगता है I'm the greatest. Yes, you are greatest. You have a chair, position है, शासक है, but no respect for the remaining two. Would you like that? And the other thing is also true, that there is two brilliant students. You saw that? This technically in our culture is called Shastra Artha. You know, we have annual conferences like this. A lot of experts will come and then you will try to decode the meaning of the messages that we exchange or debate upon. I'm sure you see in the IT Day celebrations also, thanks to Jeetu, you'll get a lot of brilliant speakers, right? But they're not here to deliver speeches. They're going to give insights. और उसको सोचना है, डिबेट करना है, प्रश्नोत्तरी करना है. And the Raja says, तुम कौन है सिखाने वाले मुझे? You know, you're a teacher, एक काम कर, थोड़ा सा पैसा लेके निकल जाए इधर से. So I always say that your teachers are supposed to be guide for two categories, students and leaders. We have limited teachers as a guide to students, and unfortunately, our examination system has actually become an education system, isn't it? Our education system is actually an examination system. It is not debate and discussions, right or no? और अगर ज्यादा डिबेट करोगे तो टीचर बोले चुप बैठ, मेरे से ज्यादा जानता है क्या? ये घर पे भी चलता है, करेक्ट? So young generation, actually wants debate, isn't it true? But we are not encouraging that. Neither the leaders, if you look at it, saying that we, of course, as a culture, when you go into startups, why do you think ChatGPT is doing well? Please understand, ChatGPT is not just about information. It's debate and discussions, isn't it true? ध्यान रखो, एक human psychology का basic need is not information. Would you like to be informed or would you like to spend time with your friend? Why? Because you debate, discuss, you agree, disagree, isn't it true? देखिए, कोई भी entrepreneurship culture में, when you have your own offices, you should encourage debates and discussions. Otherwise, that company will stagnate. एक आपको एक छोटा सा फिर से मेरी किताब के बारे में बात करता हूँ. Again, Chanakya Neeti, because that's about startups. You know, there's a family. Debates and discussions start in a family. वहाँ पे एक बहुत अच्छा एक फैमिली का हमने सीन क्रिएट किया है. And they always have, you know, differences of opinion. Now ध्यान रखिए, difference of opinion is not the weakness of a team. It is the strength of a team. अरे अलग सोचता है, उल्टा बोलता है. So in that particular house, the grandfather has put up something, because sometimes, you know, discussions becomes argument. Discussions become, and then we always keep fighting and all those things. So वहाँ पे there is a guiding principle and something we should keep in our hearts. I may not agree with you, correct? I may not agree with you, but till death, I will not take away your freedom to disagree with me. मेरे को शायद तुम्हारा जो मत है वो ठीक नहीं लग रहा, but that doesn't mean कि तुम्हारे में मतभेद नहीं हो सकता. मतभेद हो सकता है लेकिन मनभेद नहीं. We start hating people with a different opinion. No. So remember one thing, when you build your culture of startup in your companies, it could be a one-man show, one-woman show to begin with. But your growth trajectory will have a lot of people with you, right? So if you forget debate and discussions, you will be gone. Anyway, that's a different thing. What I'm going to do now, we saw a leader who was arrogant. You know, the beauty of life is that when we have no success, we have a lot of friends. And the more we have friends, we lag, we look out for friends. कोई आता नहीं. We may have an iPhone 26. But phone ही नहीं बजता है, क्या करें? फिर WhatsApp देख के बैठते हो. My dear friends, remember one thing, your boardrooms that you create. I've been to a lot of companies where, you know, we say, दिन भर बैठ के झगड़ा करो. उसमें से जो निकल के आएगा ना, that will be the next big idea for the world. Do you encourage debates and discussions? So I'll tell you, in every college that I go, the place that I love is the canteen. Isn't it true? Where वहाँ पे कोई teacher का डर नहीं होता है. And classroom should be the place where teachers encourage viewpoints. Many people don't know we had a great leader in our country. His name was President Pranab Mukherjee. Heard about him? He recently, of course, left his body, is no more there. I'm giving you a homework, YouTube video. Pranab Mukherjee, many people don't know, was actually a teacher before he entered the political field. पता है आपको ये बात? And before he died that year, on 5th of September, what is speciality of 5th of September? Teachers Day. He actually went and gave a lecture in a college, and that is available on YouTube. आप देखिए Pranab Mukherjee's classroom lecture. You know what he did? His subject was political science. Many people don't know this. वो किसका नसीब कहाँ होगा पता नहीं. He started as a professor, landed up as the first citizen of our country, President of India. The President of India is the supreme commander of the 3 armed forces. पता है ना आपको? आप सोचो कहाँ से निकले. एक शिक्षक बन गए एक शासक. But anyway, but in that particular lecture, you should have 1 hour lecture hai, as a president, he's talking to the next generation. And he tells something very interesting. I've been very fortunate to spend a lot of personal time with many presidents of our country, including Pranab Mukherjee. And we had invited him to Mumbai University, where I'm a director. And I still remember Pranab Mukherjee telling this. He said, you know, universities are not supposed to give degrees. हाँ? वो तो हमारा काम है ना, administrative work. University is the only place inside a classroom anybody can talk anything. It's a visionary statement, isn't it true? Classroom के अंदर आप कुछ भी बात करो. That doesn't mean directionless. The teacher has to moderate. Therefore, in everything you have a moderator, a director, whatever. But he said something. अगर अंदर यहाँ पे नहीं बात करोगे, तो बाहर घुटन होगी. Isn't it true? So it's a place where you vent out your frustrations also. So you saw the quality of discussion that two students, एक डर गया और आजा चिल्लाया ना, तो डर गया. दूसरा खड़ा हो गया, नहीं, and he stood strong. And dear friends, you know, a startup, one of the things I'm seeing in the particular, you know, your schedule also, there is one session on funding also. Isn't it true? Do you want funding for your startup? Yes or no? लगता ही है. Our generation never thought. Because we say जो भी है उसी से शुरू करो. अभी जाके इंडिया में पैसा आ रहा है. People are talking about listing their companies, but there was a generation where funding was not the concept of entrepreneurship. चलो एक कदम डालो, चलते जाओ, मंजिल की ओर चलते जाओ. Anyway, I'll tell you about funding. How many of you heard about TED Talks, TED, TEDx Talks? All of you. Do you know the concept of TED Talks? How it started? It is something that happened in universities. TED full form क्या है? Pardon? What is the full form of TED? It's an abbreviation. Oh, that's, think extremely different is one part of it, but the original one is? Yeah. Yeah, please repeat that. Yeah, you are right. It's actually technology, T for technology, E for entertainment, D for design. This was started in Stanford University. It was a pitch made for by startups to potential investors. Jito is already doing that, right? So क्या करते थे कि जो पैसे वाले आके बैठते थे and that बेचारा student अपना आइडिया लेके प्रेजेंट करता था and the time given was 15 minutes with 3 minutes Q&A. तो कोई भी TED talk आप देखोगे 18 मिनट से ज्यादा नहीं है. पता है आपको ये बात? And you know what happened? आजकल शार्क टैंक चल रहा है ना, देखते हो कि नहीं देखते हो? और सब जीतने के बाद भी कितना मिलता है? How much you get? Go to Jito, they'll give more money than Shark Tanks. True or no? Why am I telling you is that we don't understand that America is a country, like every country, like any other country, there are plus and minus, right? One of the pluses of America is startup culture. True or no? तो कॉलेज के अंदर बच्चों को बोला तुम्हारे पास कोई आइडिया है, we'll help you fund it. You know what the professors used to do? They used to call investors और बैठो उधर 15 मिनट का presentation दो and 3 minute Q&A and the deal is closed. Have you seen the movie called Social Network? Starting of Facebook, isn't it? The whole movie is in a university called Harvard. देखा है आपने? क्या startup कर रहे हो तुम लोग? Movies नहीं देखते. I'm telling you, startup culture is not about what happens in the market. Startup is what happens in the classrooms. Anyway, so Mark Zuckerberg की story तो बहुत बड़ी हो गई, वो जाने दीजिए, अभी देखिए. So what happened? These particular students used to come and present to a potential investor, TED, because it's Stanford University. They're more into the IT culture and all those things in Silicon Valley. Technology के ऊपर कोई idea है तो present करो, तो they'll invest. Entertainment or design. That's how the name TED come in. But something strange happened. You know, something strange. ध्यान रखिएगा. Suppose I did not get funding by these investors. Doesn't mean my idea is wrong. Correct? It's like, you know, तुम उस field के नहीं हो, तो क्या करें? You know what they did? Look at the ideas of the professors. See, the idea बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन ये 15 लोग जो बैठे हैं, so-called investors, they are not able to invest. Doesn't mean your idea is bad. Let us use to take this idea to the world. So if you are a student making a presentation for 15 minutes, it was video recorded and put on a channel called TED. And lot of students got funding from outside. The investors who watched TED even today, Shah Rukh Khan ran a series. You remember that in India? I don't know, it's not commercially इतना बड़ा नहीं था, but it became a platform anybody and everybody can go and speak. I have spoken in TEDx 5 times. एक बार नहीं, 2 बार नहीं. The idea of telling you is that, friends, if you want to showcase your idea today, technology हो या entertainment हो, design हो, social business हो, कुछ भी हो, you have this platform called the internet. Isn't it true? Broadcast your idea. Okay, and believe me, you never know. That is where उद्योग and कर्मयोग comes in. हमने इधर डाला, इधर कुछ नहीं हुआ, कोई उधर डाल दो, पता नहीं कौन आ जाएगा. An entrepreneur doesn't believe that your target audience is only this. An entrepreneur believes that my target audience can be from anywhere. Isn't it true? I'll tell you, there's a very interesting analytics that the entrepreneurs have without technology. Analytics क्या होता है? It is not just about data analytics. Analytics is understanding human behavior. I'll tell you a story of a Jain, who was actually running a small shop. And I think you should have a session on the Jain community's business model also. Jito is a very interesting, there are a lot of documented case studies. And since I sit in Mumbai, I know everything is documented in a lot of things. Anyway, so there was this businessman who अपने दुकान पे बैठता था. And his timing was morning 9 till night 11 o'clock. There's so many chota dadi maa ka nuska that you'll get from them. You know what they say is that business doesn't happen only from 9 to 11. It happens from 11 to 9. वो दुकान खोल के रखा है मतलब धंधा कर रहा नहीं है, वो 24 घंटा धंधा करता है, धंधे के बारे में सोचता है. Isn't it true? I know of a businessman who was going through a loss and he had a mentor. तो उसको जाके बोला ये दुकान खोल के बैठा हूँ, तो तुम्हारा प्रॉब्लम क्या? बोलता है ग्राहक आता है, that is not a problem, but rent बहुत ज्यादा है. Isn't it true? And then he asked this particular businessman, दुकान खोल के बैठे हो? बोला हाँ. कितना खोल के बैठे हो? 9 से 11. 11 से 9 क्या करते हो? 11 से 9 घर पे जाके सोचता हूँ. You're not a businessman. He started night shift and his business grew. There was a person, if you remember, in pandemic, he kept the departmental store open for 24 hours. DMart. And you'll be surprised, he actually at one point became the richest man in India. Even higher than Mukesh Ambani. So देखो अब कैसे insight, data analytics किया 11 से 9. मैं ये नहीं बोलता कि सो मत. Business never sleeps. Human beings need to sleep. Forget, you understand the difference? Businessmen need to sleep. We need to sleep. थोड़ा rest चाहिए ना, नहीं तो burn out हो जाओगे. You'll have a lot of mental health problems. But I'll tell you about the analytics. This analytics is so interesting. So बोलते हैं कि there was a relative who came in at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, peak business hours, ग्राहक खड़े and all those things. तो उसने उसको बोला कि धंधे का टाइम है, शाम को 6 बजे के बाद आओ. होता है कि नहीं होता है? Okay, you come after 6. So this person said, ठीक है, शाम को 6 बजे आता हूँ, बैठो, बातें करते हैं. Then he asked him one interesting question. बोलता है यार मैं सुबह 12 बजे आया, आपने बोला 6 बजे आओ because it's धंधे का टाइम. So tell me one thing, what do you do after 6 p.m? तो बोलता मैं यहाँ पे बैठा हूँ खुर्ची पे from morning 9 to 11, right? And sometimes he'll take a shift also. He said something very insightful. तो बोलता my peak business hours is actually from morning to maybe 7 o'clock in the evening. After that, I study the pattern of my customers. I study the pattern of my customers and then decide my next strategy for the next day. देखो डाटा एनालिटिक्स उधर भी है ना. Then I'll make a list, फिर देखता आज सबसे ज्यादा मार्केट में हमारे दुकान से क्या गया. Oh, अच्छा. I think maximum people are buying cold drinks now. क्यों? Summer season, right? Okay, then you'll look at the MRP and अच्छा कौन सा product. So there's a Coke, let's say there is a Thumbs Up or whatever, or maybe a Rasna also. You'll start looking at it. Okay, I analyzed it. It's summer season, I understand it. I look at the calendar. Summer season कब तक चलेगा? 3 महीना चलेगा? How do I stock it up now? Where is my warehouse? Can I negotiate and get a better deal with the Coke distributor? Important business? Very important. So I'm not sitting there only to sell the products. I'm analyzing. Achha, this customer last month, I have a data with me. He bought goods worth 1,000 rupees. But ye saal, I was looking at this chart and I'm seeing that he is buying goods worth 3,000 rupees. And I understand, looking at his behavior and his dressing sense, that actually uska capacity to buy is 10,000 rupees. Last year 1,000 रुपए का माल लिया, ये साल उसका मेरे पास स्टैटिस्टिक्स है, डेटा है, बिकॉज वो घर पे सप्लाई करता है ना. फ्लैट नंबर 301 ऑफ श्रीवर्धन अपार्टमेंट, उसका सब रिकॉर्ड रखता है वो. एंड देन ही सेज एंड ओके, बट आई नो वन थिंग, ही कम्स इन ए मर्सिडीज बेंज. तो आई एम स्टूपिड दैट आई कांट सेल 10,000 रुपीज. So what can I sell? तो ही विल टेल दैट बॉय नेक्स्ट टाइम एक काम करना, जब नेक्स्ट टाइम तो डिलीवरी के लिए जाएगा ना, तो भाभी जी को ये 2 आइटम फ्री में दे देना, सैंपल. Is that not business analytics? See, we don't understand. So I am not telling you don't go into AI, machine learning, all these robotics is important. But the basic thing without technology also to understand human nature. So what I'm going to do, since I want to limit myself and maybe keep some time for Q&A, I'm going to talk about leadership qualities required for a startup entrepreneur. Chanakya was a leadership guru, right? Don't think like just a businessman, think like a leader. And Chanakya has given 56 qualities of a leader. At some places there are 36, and then I discovered 56 qualities. अभी पूरा इतना समय नहीं कि I'll talk about all the 56 qualities. I will only give you 3 qualities. शुरुआत तो करो, फिर बाद में मेरे books पढ़ लेना. Okay. The first quality of any leader, okay, startup अगर कर रहे हो तो remember you have to develop qualities inside you. Unfortunately, we are only developing skill sets. Skill sets cannot take you far. Skill sets are important, but skill sets cannot take you far. The qualities inside you is what takes you ahead. The first quality of Chanakya according to leadership is intelligent and dynamic. There are 2 qualities. एक ही coin के 2 parts है. Don't you think you have to be intelligent? The basic thing to understand. And let me tell you, भगवान ने सबको थोड़ा बुद्धि दिया है, isn't it true? But we don't know how to use it. In Sanskrit there are 2 words, mana and buddhi. True or no? तो हम मन में इतना अटक जाते कि बुद्धि का उपयोग नहीं करते. You have to be rational. That is where education comes in. I have seen every businessman telling invest on education, isn't it true? बच्चे को बोलते आगे जाके पढ़ो. बुद्धिमान बनो. कैसे बनना है? That's where analytics comes in. Today, it's a world of information and data available free of cost. But can you sit down for 1 hour every day and analyze the data and then make a plan out of it? Ideas is not enough. You need to logically present it to the next level. And I'll tell you an interesting thing. There's a subject in Chanakya called as Anvikshiki. We do a 6 months training program of how to develop your intelligence the Chanakya way. आप सोचो इतना बड़ा विद्या हमारे पास है. And Chanakya says, for a leader that is the prathama vidya. How to think. सोचना कैसे है? हम तो रट्टा मारते हैं. You know, we are good in mugging up, isn't it true? But if you say, can you give me insights and all those things? So I'll give you an example. Any engineers here? Maximum. Okay. So there's a joke about engineers I had read once. They're good jokes. They're nice people. I love engineers. There's इतना जाड़ा book था. It was like a textbook. More than 1,200 pages. So teacher called 3 students. अब बोला इतना बड़ा book है, 1000 पेज के ऊपर है, जाड़ा है. How much time do you think you will, require to read this book? The first person looks at the number of pages. Okay, madam, 1 महीना. I will read every page and I will take 1 month. Teacher said, okay, fine, fair enough. जाड़ा book है, 1 month is fair. She asked the second person, tell me how much time will you take to read this book, same book? He looked at it and said, ma'am, I recently did a speed reading course. I can read the whole book in 1 week. Wow, not bad. And as the third person, he was an engineer. कितना टाइम लगे बुक पढ़ने के लिए? एग्जाम कब है? ये पूरा बुक आज शाम को पढ़ लूंगा. एग्जाम कर लेना. So the idea is, see, look at the intelligence being used only for one thing. It is called memory. Memory is not intelligence. Memory is one part of intelligence. So we develop that, isn't it? To remember it. And there's a joke about examination. Before the exam, I know everything. After the exam also, I know everything. And the problem is during exams. Before exam, I'm wise. After exam, I'm wise. During exam, otherwise. देखो, businessman वो होता है जो सामने, he says, this is how I have to crack the deal. When you get into business leadership, believe me, negotiations is not small. That is what makes or breaks a business. और तभी आपके पास टाइम ही नहीं होगा फोन करने के लिए, get an advice. You are not lucky like being on Amitabh Bachchan's hot seat. Phone a friend. Have you seen that? कि वहां पे close करो. तभी आप कैसे करोगे? Information is not enough. You need to get that basic and you can develop it. And the interesting part of our country, our culture is that we have actually tools and techniques to use our intelligence. बुद्धिमान कैसे बनना है? Maybe some other day I'll take a lecture on that. But remember, only intelligence is not enough, dynamic. We don't apply our business plans. We only create business plans. Theory and practice भी चाहिए ना? See, a good leader is intelligent and also applies the ideas. यहाँ पे bridge बनना चाहिए. Very good. Quotation लेके सब आ रहे, bridge कभी बनेगा? बनेगा ना? Somebody told me a good leader should know 3 J's. What is that? 3 J's of public speaking. What are 3 J's? Have you heard about it? जोर से बोलो, जल्दी बोलो और झूठ बोलो. अरे जोर से बोलो. Oh, motivational speaker. They put me into that category. अरे I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not against motivational speakers also. But here we are talking about strategy. जोर से बोलने से कुछ नहीं होता है और जल्दी बोलो, confuse people. क्या बोल के गया? और झूठ बोलो. Give them promises. We will do it. How? पता नहीं. So you should have plans, but remember, people will respect the leader only if you are successful. Isn't it true? The first quality, intelligent and dynamic. Second quality, very interesting quality. It is called given to seeing elders. A leader is a good leader, and one of the qualities is when he meets elders, vriddha. The Sanskrit word is vriddha sanyogaha. आपके लाइफ में प्रॉब्लम होगा? आपके लाइफ में प्रॉब्लम होगा? बिजनेस में प्रॉब्लम होगा? So there are many solutions when you have problem. And the one we naturally apply, easily apply is called मित्रों के साथ संबंध, isn't it? Call a friend. Hello, क्या करना चाहिए? But the friend also may be confused, isn't it? Blind leading the blind. But Chanakya gives a leadership quality. वृद्धों के साथ संयोग. What do you mean by वृद्धों के साथ संयोग? Experienced people will tell you what to do in that situation. For you it may be first time, isn't it? But when that elderly person tells you, okay, do this, believe me, you will crack the biggest problem. That's why you require more mentors in startups. And I'll tell you a good news for all startups. India is a country of, lot of overloaded mentors. True or no? But पूछते नहीं है ना कोई. I'll tell you, anybody beyond 60 average is not working for money anymore. True or no? Ask all the successful. They are waiting with so much wisdom, लेकिन घर वाले भी पूछते नहीं. Go. In fact, I don't know if you know this. The government of India, go to the website gov.in. Under startups, there is a statutory requirement. Every company should have an independent director. पता है आपको? Are you aware of this? It's a statutory requirement, like how to audit. You need to have an independent director. And let me tell you, independent director का current requirement in our country is more than 1 lakh. Yeah. किसको पता है नहीं? lot of senior IAS, IPS, retired officers come to me. इतना experience है, इतना अभी एक बार वो वर्दी उतर गई ना, IPS officer का कोई पूछता नहीं. बोला करो ना, जाओ colleges में जाओ. And I'm sure many of you have heard such stalwarts, isn't it? You'll be surprised. Chanakya said that when you as a young boy or a girl is facing the problem for the first time, the wisdom of the elders will guide you. Unfortunately, हम लोग क्या करते हैं? हमको पता ही नहीं है. That's another topic. But the quality, always be surrounded, not just with your friends, but be surrounded with your mentors. Vriddha Sanyoga. I'll give an example, practical startup example. There's a friend of mine. He's got a startup, first generation, and interestingly, he's got a factory in Bombay with more than 150 employees. Pandemic aa gaya, all business getting affected, all those things. He tried for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, but finally no cash flows. Real problem? Manufacturing. We are not into work from home culture. लोग बोलते हैं ना घर पे बैठ के लैपटॉप पे काम करो, वो ठीक है. But what about a manufacturing unit? But the government says you can't go. He tried for 3 months. He tried for extra. Spoke to some friends and all those things. And he said नहीं अभी नहीं होता, धंधा बंद करो. हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ है? lot of money. But one good thing that person did, that's very interesting. You know, whenever he starts any new project, ये आप लोग करना, a part of the shares, he will always give it to his mother. He always makes mother his partner. She doesn't come, she's not highly educated. Basic 4th standard, she knows to read and write. She's literate. But ये अपना MBA. But one good thing, किसी ने उसको बोला था, कोई वृद्ध ने, कि जिंदगी में कुछ भी करो, बड़ों का आशीर्वाद लेके करो. And because he was a person who was brought up by his mother, his dad died very early. तो एक प्यार होता है ना मम्मी के साथ. तो कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट चालू करेगा, कंपनी चालू करेगा, तो मम्मी को पहले शेयर्स दे देगा. और बीवी की भी सुनता है. So finally decided to shut down the company. He went to a chartered accountant. They looked at the numbers and said not possible. बंद करते हैं. ठीक है. He decided. Remember, he decided. But you know what? You cannot shut down a company without informing the shareholders. पता है आपको ये बात? See, I don't want you to think small. आज कंपनी का स्टार्टअप. I want you to think जब कंपनी बहुत बड़ी हो जाएगी तब क्या प्रॉब्लम आएगा? You are still discussing your starting problems. I am telling you, you will become very big. And one day you will have a different problem. One of the problems is how to manage board meetings. पता है आपको बात? Board meetings में क्या होता है? A chairman can be removed in a board meeting. It happened with Steve Jobs. The founder of that company, Apple, was removed by the board. Are you aware of it? तो आपको ये जो गेम है ना स्टार्टअप वाला, it's a temporary problem. But I want to think about a company 30 years ahead. Anyway, so according to the thing, अभी पैसा कुछ नहीं हो सकता, बंद करो. But the law says you have to inform the shareholders. अभी मम्मी shareholder है, मतलब शाम को inform करता हूँ. Remember the word, मम्मी को inform करता हूँ. He never even thought I will take advice from mummy. So our mothers and grandmothers are taken for granted. वहाँ पे बैठे हैं ना. As long as they are healthy, we are happy. Otherwise, that also is a burden. एक country में इतने सारे old age homes. Global problem. And there is a nice word. I am sending my parents to a gated community. अरे यार, come on. I will tell you what happened. You know, don't take it lightly. It is not about business. It's also saving a great culture in which you do a business. So he went to the mom.